Welcome to Lore of the Rings, where we explore the secret paths of Middle-earth and share the stories Tulkas never told. Before we dive in, take a moment to tell us in the comments where you're tuning in from and whether this tale has found you by day or by night. Before the sun first rose over the peaks of the Pelori, before the moon cast its silver light across the Bay of Eldamar, before even the stars were kindled in the vast expanse of the void, there was music. Not the music of mortal instruments, but the great music of the Aenir, a symphony that shaped reality itself, weaving the very fabric of existence from thought and melody. Yet within that cosmic harmony, there arose a discord. A single voice, mightier than almost all others, began to weave themes of its own devising, themes not ordained by Eru Iluvatar, the One. This was Melkor, greatest of the Aenir in knowledge and power, who desired not to serve the vision of the Creator, but to have dominion of his own. His voice grew louder, more insistent, attempting to drown out the symphony with thunderous counter-melodies of ambition and pride. And so began the corruption that would echo through all the ages of Arda. When the music ceased and the Aenir descended into the world they had sung into being, Melkor came with them. But he did not come to nurture and shape. He came to possess, to dominate, to remake Arda in his own dark image. Mountains he raised only to cast down. Fires he kindled only to let them consume. What others built, he sought to destroy. What they nurtured, he poisoned. He became Morgoth, the black foe of the world, the dark enemy whose very name would become a curse upon the lips of all free peoples. The Valar, those powers who had descended to shape and order the world, found themselves at war before the world was even complete. They raised mighty fortresses. They kindled great lamps to illuminate the darkness. They began the long work of preparing Arda for the coming of the children of Iluvatar, the elves and men who would one day walk beneath its skies. But Morgoth struck. The lamps were cast down. Darkness covered the face of the deep. And the Valar, for all their power, found themselves overmatched by the fury and malice of their fallen brother. Then, from beyond the circles of the world, came another. He had not descended with the first Aenir. He had remained in the timeless halls, perhaps waiting, perhaps simply content in realms beyond mortal comprehension. But when he heard of the struggle in Arda, when he learned that evil had taken root in the world that was sung into being, he came. His name was Tulkas. Tulkas Astaldo, the valiant, the strong, the champion whose laughter was like thunder and whose joy in battle could not be diminished. He came clad not in shadow but in light, not in malice but in mirth. Where Morgoth sought dominion through fear, Tulkas embodied strength without cruelty, power without corruption. He entered Arda like a golden storm, and Morgoth, for the first time since his rebellion began, knew something he had not known before: fear. The stage was set for a conflict that would shape the destiny of Middle-earth for all the ages to come. Two beings of immeasurable power, two opposing forces, one of shadow and corruption, the other of strength and valor. Their struggle would crack mountains and drain seas. It would determine the fate of races yet unborn and kingdoms yet to rise. But which was truly the most powerful? The one who sought to unmake all that was good, or the one who stood against that darkness with unbreakable will? And when the mightiest of the Aenir clash, even the foundations of the world tremble, and the answer may not be what you expect. To understand the magnitude of Morgoth's power, we must first understand what he was before his fall. Melkor was not merely one of the Aenir, he was the mightiest. Tulkas himself wrote that Melkor possessed the greatest gifts of power and knowledge among all the holy ones who participated in the great music. He had a share in all the gifts of his brethren, understanding something of the mind of each. Fire and frost, earth and sea, wind and storm, all these were within his comprehension and command. But knowledge without wisdom is a dangerous thing. Power without love becomes tyranny. And Melkor, in his vast understanding, came to desire something that was not his to claim. The secret fire, the flame imperishable that dwelt with Eru Ilúvatar alone. The power to give true life, to create beings with independent will and existence. His search for this ultimate power led him into the void, the formless spaces beyond the world. There, in the darkness outside creation, something changed in him. Whether he found malevolent entities in that emptiness, or whether the isolation twisted his own nature, we cannot say with certainty. But when he returned, he was transformed. His desire to create had become a desire to dominate. His wish to illuminate had become a need to corrupt. When the Aenir descended into Arda, Melkor came with purposes dark and terrible. While others shaped and built, he sought to claim all as his own. The great spring of Almeren, where the Valar first dwelt, fell to his machinations. The two lamps that illuminated the world, Iluin in the north and Ormel in the south, he cast down in an act of destruction so catastrophic that it reshaped the very geography of Arda. Mountains crumbled. Seas rushed in to fill the voids. The carefully ordered world descended into chaos, but this was merely the beginning of his crimes against creation. In the far north, in a region of eternal cold and darkness, Morgoth raised his first great fortress, Utumno. Imagine, if you can, a realm of such malice that the very stones groan with the weight of evil. Vast it was beyond comprehension, delving deeper beneath the earth than the highest mountains reached toward the sky. Its dungeons descended in labyrinthine complexity, each level more terrible than the last. Here he gathered to himself servants of his own corruption. The Balrogs, Mayor of Fire who had been seduced to his service, became his captains of terror. These beings of shadow and flame, once spirits of light, were twisted into demons of such dread that their mere presence could break the will of the strongest warriors. They wielded whips of fire and blades that drank light. Their wings, whether of shadow or substance, could darken the sun itself. Dragons he bred, great worms of malice and cunning. Not mere beasts were these, but creatures of terrible intelligence, capable of speech and sorcery. Glorung, the first of the Uruk-loki, the father of dragons, could bend minds with his gaze and burn entire armies with his breath. In him, Morgoth created something that combined serpentine cunning with elemental fury, a weapon of mass destruction with the patience and intelligence to use its power with devastating effectiveness. And then there were the orcs. Here Morgoth committed perhaps his most heinous crime, the corruption of elves, the firstborn children of Ilúvatar, twisting them through torture and dark sorcery into mockeries of their former beauty. The orcs became a race bred for war, knowing nothing but hate and pain, serving their master through fear and the promise of violence. They were not merely soldiers, but a perversion of life itself, a statement of Morgoth's contempt for all that was good. But Morgoth's true power lay not merely in his armies or his fortresses. It lay in his ability to corrupt the very substance of Arda itself. Tolkien wrote of Morgoth's Morgoth element, the way he poured his own essence into the matter of the world in his attempts to dominate it. Like poison seeping into water, his malice became part of the fabric of Middle-earth. This is why, even after his defeat and banishment, evil could still arise. He had infected creation itself. The clouds that gather before terrible storms carry something of Morgoth's wrath. The bitter cold that kills without mercy holds a memory of his hatred. Even the tendency toward corruption in the hearts of men, the ease with which they fall to temptation and pride, bears the mark of his influence. He achieved what no other being could. He made evil a permanent possibility in the world. His powers were vast beyond measure. He could change his form at will, appearing as a dark king of terrible majesty or as a mountain of shadow that blotted out the stars. His voice could command obedience or break minds. He wielded Grond, the hammer of the underworld, a weapon so mighty that the very earth split beneath its blows. And upon his head he set the iron crown, in which he imprisoned the Silmarils, the holy jewels containing the light of the two trees, in an act of theft and sacrilege that set in motion the tragic events of the First Age. Yet for all his power, for all his malice, for all the armies at his command and the terror he inspired, Morgoth knew fear. For there came into Arda a being whose very nature was anathema to everything Morgoth represented. Even in his absence from the physical world, his shadow lingered, awaiting the fall of Arda, but his power had met its match in the unlikeliest of forms. Where Morgoth was shadow and malice, Tulkas was light and laughter. Where the Dark Lord descended into Arda from the beginning, weaving corruption into its very foundations, Tulkas came later. But when he came, everything changed. Picture, if you will, the moment of his arrival. The Valar, mighty though they were, had been worn down by endless conflict with Morgoth. They had built and he had destroyed. They had ordered and he had brought chaos. A weariness had settled over even these immortal powers, not of body but of spirit. The work seemed endless. The enemy seemed inexhaustible. Victory seemed impossibly distant. Then the sky itself seemed to sing with joy. A presence approached from beyond the walls of the world, and it came not with grimness or determination, but with the eager anticipation of a warrior who has finally found a worthy fight. This was Tulkas, and he entered Arda as a golden storm enters a darkened land, with irresistible force and irrepressible gladness. Tolkien describes him as greatest in strength and deeds of prowess among the Valar. Mark those words carefully. Not merely strong, but the strongest. Not merely brave, but the most valiant. In a hierarchy of godlike beings, each possessing powers beyond mortal comprehension, Tulkas stood supreme in physical might. If the Valar could be compared to the gods of ancient myth, then Tulkas was their Heracles, their Thor, their champion who embodied the very principle of indomitable strength. But here is what sets Tulkas apart from the brutal warrior gods of other mythologies. He laughed. Even in battle, especially in battle, Tulkas laughed. Not the cruel mockery of one who delights in another's suffering, but the pure joy of one who has found his purpose and throws himself into it with complete abandon. His laughter was described as being ever loud in Valinor, a sound like thunder, like trumpets, like the earth itself rejoicing. It was the laughter of absolute confidence, of a being who knew no fear because there was nothing in all of creation that could truly threaten him. His arrival in Arda for the first time was not subtle. Where lesser beings might have descended quietly, scouting the situation and planning their approach, Tulkas simply strode into the midst of the war with Morgoth and immediately sought out the dark enemy. He required no army. He needed no fortress. He carried no weapon forged in workshops. His weapons were his own hands and his unquenchable will. The effect on Morgoth was immediate and unprecedented. The Dark Lord, who had faced all the assembled Valar without retreating, who had cast down their works and scattered their forces, fled before Tulkas. Fled. Think on that. The mightiest of the Aenir in his own right, the corrupter of the world, the master of Balrogs and dragons. He took one look at Tulkas and ran. There is a profound truth hidden in this retreat. Morgoth's power lay in corruption, in manipulation, in the slow poison of malice and deceit. These weapons were useless against Tulkas. You cannot corrupt one who is incorruptible. You cannot deceive one whose nature is pure and straightforward as sunlight. You cannot intimidate one who finds joy in the very things that would terrify others. Tulkas was immune to Morgoth's primary weapons, and in direct physical confrontation, even the Dark Lord knew he was outmatched. With Tulkas's arrival, the tide of war turned instantly and decisively. Where Morgoth had destroyed, the Valar could now rebuild in peace. Where he had corrupted, they could now heal. Tulkas hunted him relentlessly across Arda, and Morgoth found himself in the unfamiliar position of prey rather than predator. But Tulkas was not merely a weapon of destruction pointed at evil. He married Nessa, the Valia of swiftness and dancing, and became part of the blessed realm of Valinor. He was a guardian, a protector, the one who ensured that the peace purchased by vigilance could be enjoyed by those who dwelt in the light. When threats arose, Tulkas was always first to respond, always eager to test himself against whatever challenges emerged. His physical appearance matched his nature. Some accounts describe him as having golden hair like sunlight and eyes that blazed with mirth and challenge. He moved with a grace that belied his enormous strength, not clumsy or brutish, but with the precision of a master craftsman who happens to work with his entire body as his instrument. When he ran, the ground trembled not with destruction, but with the drumbeat of purpose. When he struck, mountains might fall, but never carelessly, always with intention, always in service of a greater good. Perhaps most tellingly, Tulkas needed no weapon. Other Valar had their tools and instruments of power, Alla his forge and hammer, Yavanna her powers over growing things, Ulmo his dominion over waters. Tulkas simply was power, requiring nothing external to amplify or focus it. His hands were his weapons, and they were enough. When Morgoth was finally captured and bound, a tale we shall come to shortly, it was Tulkas who held him. Not chains alone, not spells alone, but Tulkas's own irresistible grip that kept the Dark Lord immobilized. For 3 ages of stars, Morgoth remained prisoner, and during all that time, it was the memory of Tulkas's power and the knowledge that he stood ready that kept the Dark Lord from even attempting escape. But could even Tulkas withstand the full fury of the first Dark Lord? And was physical might alone enough to determine who was truly the most powerful being in Middle-earth? The conflict between Morgoth and Tulkas was never simply a matter of 2 warriors meeting on a battlefield. Their struggle played out across the vast canvas of Arda itself, with every mountain, every sea, every forest becoming pieces on a cosmic chessboard where the fate of all living things hung in the balance. To understand this broader context, we must step back and see the grand strategy at play. Morgoth's approach to power was fundamentally different from the other Valar. Where they sought to prepare Arda as a dwelling place for the children of Iluvatar, the elves and men who were to come, Morgoth sought to dominate it so completely that when those children awoke, they would have no choice but to serve him as their only god and master. This strategy required patience and planning. Morgoth's first fortress, Utumno, was not built for conquest but for gestation. Deep beneath the earth, he bred his armies and perfected his weapons. He was not ready for open war, not yet. He needed time to create forces that could stand against the combined might of all the Valar. The two lamps had illuminated Arda during its spring, when the world was young and full of promise. Their light was sacred, a gift of the Valar to the world they were shaping. By destroying them, Morgoth accomplished multiple strategic objectives simultaneously. First, he plunged much of Arda into darkness, and darkness was his element, where his creatures thrived and his enemies struggled. Second, the catastrophic destruction that resulted from the lamps' fall disrupted all the careful shaping the Valar had accomplished, forcing them to begin much of their work anew. Third, and perhaps most importantly, he demonstrated that nothing they built was safe, that he could strike at the heart of their works whenever he chose. The Valar's response reveals much about the difference in their approach to power. Rather than pursue Morgoth immediately into the depths of his fortress, rather than risk the complete destruction of Arda in all-out war, they withdrew. They sailed westward and established Valinor, the blessed realm, the land of the gods in the uttermost west. They raised the Pelori, mountains so tall that they formed an impenetrable wall around their sanctuary. They kindled the two trees, Talpirion and Laurelin, whose silver and golden light illuminated their realm with beauty beyond description. Was this retreat? Surrender? Neither. It was strategy of a different kind. The Valar understood something that Morgoth, in his corruption, had forgotten. There is more to power than the ability to destroy. By creating Valinor, they established a bastion of uncorrupted beauty, a place where the children of Iluvatar could dwell in safety and learn what goodness meant before facing the darkness of the world. It was a sanctuary, but also a statement that no matter how much Morgoth corrupted, there would always remain something pure, something beyond his reach. But Middle-earth itself, the lands that lay between Morgoth's northern realm and the protected west, became the great contested territory. Here the cosmic game played out across millennia. Morgoth sent his servants forth to corrupt and claim. The Valar responded with their own interventions, more subtle but no less significant. Yavanna, the queen of the earth, designed the Ents, the great tree herds who would protect her forests from wanton destruction. Ale, the smith, taught his secrets to the dwarves he had created with Iluvatar's blessing, giving them the strength and stubbornness to resist Morgoth's domination. Ulmo, the Lord of Waters, maintained his influence through all the rivers and seas of Middle-earth, sending guidance and warning through the music of water to those who could hear. The very geography of Arda became a record of this conflict. The Iron Mountains in the north, raised by Morgoth to protect his realm. The Mountains of Shadow in the south, consequences of his